Happy New Year, everyone. I think it will be New Year's in about 15 minutes at Eastern Time. I won't keep you for long. I just really wanted to wish you all the best for 2025. But also, I wanted to thank everyone for contributing to the channel. And also those who have contributed to our new project. It's called the Insight Sangha. Recently, in the end of this year, December, we incorporated a not-for-profit society whose purpose is to encourage the development of spiritual knowledge and insight into the contemplative arts. And with that, then, we're going to support people who want to do retreats and provide free retreats. And the first of those will be in May this year. We're doing our first kind of venture, first trial, and that's providing a free retreat for 16 people in the Gulf Islands of British Columbia. So we hope that all goes well. And so I want to thank all the people who have contributed to this not-for-profit organization. And all that money is being used to help people with their spiritual practice. And also I wanted to thank those who have contributed their time, put in their time and effort to help develop this. For example, we're going to launch a website in 2025, and then there's many kind people who are helping to make that happen. Now, New Year is seen to be very important in Tibetan Buddhism. And although what we experience in the world now is a lot of negativity and polarization, then something that's really important, seen to be very important, on the first day of the new year is to start off with auspicious conditions. That means to set the new year off on the right foot. And so even though there's a lot of sorrow and negativity in the world, what we try to do is to get a positive start to this new year. And then to set the right conditions for hope and progress in 2025. It's difficult because here we're talking about the spiritual path and more specifically about Buddhism. And famously then, the Buddha taught the first thing you need to do is you need to understand suffering. So sometimes it seems like this path is quite negative. And some people say, I don't want to think about suffering. I'm already suffering enough. I want something positive to make me happy. But really, the Buddha Dharma is extremely positive. Because fundamentally, what is taught is that all beings have the Tathagata Garbha. That's Buddha nature. This is the essential quality of mind. All beings who possess mind. I mean, you've heard this term, sentient being, and we often wonder what that means. But it means a being that possesses mind. And a being that possesses mind has something that is called fundamental ignorance, and that is the identification with me and mine. So we can see what a sentient being is, because a sentient being sees the world very much from perspective of me, and so they try to protect the self. And when you look at microscopic organisms, and if you try to harm them, then they will also try to run away. So this is seen to be a sign. So whereas we possess this fundamental ignorance, we also possess the Buddha nature. It's said that the fundamental nature, the true nature of a being that possesses mind is limitless compassion. Now the ignorance anger, greed, these sorts of things are not seen to be intrinsic. They're taught to be extrinsic. What is taught to be adventitious or temporary. Our negativities only rise on the basis of causes and conditions. But what is fundamental to mind is this limitless compassion. It's called non-referential compassion. It is compassion embraced by the view of emptiness, so that is compassion without clinging. So this love, this joy, equanimity and compassion, these are all qualities that every sentient being possesses. And of course, then recently we've become increasingly divided. So there is this very strong sense of self and other, friend and enemy. But as we begin this new year, this positive new year, then what we should do is try to set aside our differences and also focus our intention or our goal on ultimately bringing about positive conditions, happiness and well-being for all beings. And if we do have adversaries and enemies, then our wish is that they too, in future, will come to realize wisdom. Frog Rock asks, hello, is the non-referential compassion based on mindlessness? No, it's based on mindfulness. It depends how you use the term mindlessness, but as Shantideva taught, then the foundation of all practice is bhagyopa. That means being mindful or being careful. That's essential. So if you were to take this English term mindlessness, translate it back into Sanskrit or into Tibetan, then that would be what we want to avoid. But a sentient being is said to be a being that possesses mind. That doesn't mean manas. It doesn't mean mistaken conceptual thinking. Mind is taught to be clarity, emptiness. So they are the various appearances that we perceive. But in nature, they don't possess a fixed identity. So this is the same as the Buddha nature or Tathagata Garbha that I was talking about. And so with this understanding that essentially all beings possess this non-referential compassion, what we call Buddha nature, and then there is always hope. There is always this possibility for progress. And ultimately, it means we have what is called the disposition, the potential for awakening. And everyone has this, right down to the smallest worm. So certainly our adversaries and enemies possess this as well. It's very important to remember is that samsara, the mundane world, is a place of infinite possibilities. And there are infinite iterations of ourselves. From lifetime to lifetime, we cycle through the three realms. And we experience all kinds of existences. We experiment with all the various different iterations, possible iterations of our being. And so in past lives, then we've done things that in this life we would find intolerable. And so on this basis, we should have compassion for all beings. I know it's difficult. Many people are fed up. But if we're going to create a positive future, then that has to be based on this openness, this acceptance. Ultimately, in our practice, we have to get rid ourselves of all clinging and develop complete transparency. That means complete acceptance. And not be swayed by the appearances of the mundane world. Rather, be focused on nirvana. But nirvana is not someplace else than this. Nirvana is a state of mind. Nirvana is liberation from clinging to reality. And in order to achieve this lasting peace and happiness, what we have to do is we have to drop everything, especially our strong attachments and aversions. Oh, Winnie, hello, how are you doing? Winnie says, brightening up the conversation, I can find myself intolerable in this incarnation. I know what you mean, Winnie. I find that nearly every day. I wake up and I think, how could I be so stupid? But be kind to yourself. Hello, Mary. Happy New Year to you and Christopher, Mr. Cat. So nice to see you. Be kind to yourself. We're taught we have to have love and compassion for others, but really you have to start off by loving yourself, having compassion for yourself. Realize that your failings are temporary. Remember, they're not the nature of being. The nature of being is absolute purity. It's bliss. We're just temporarily confused. Hello, Suguru. Nice to meet you. We have a new friend on the channel. And I just want to say again, thank you to everyone on the channel for contributing your stories. Many people show great courage and they share experiences, sometimes difficult experiences they've had in the past. Hello, Dee. Blessings to you and everyone. Happy New Year. And it's through this sharing and caring that we grow as a community. So I thanked those for contributing, pitching in their comments, sharing their stories. And I also very grateful for those who have contributed to the Insight Sangha. That's the not-for-profit organization that we've incorporated to help encourage people to develop practice. And especially a big thanks to all those people who have put their time and effort into helping all of this happen. From those, for example, Mary here, she's moderating and running the Discord, a really essential part of our coming together, getting to know each other and sharing our experiences. There are those helping develop the website, etc. There's the treasurer of the society who's been very helpful. Her name's Teresa. And she's helped the whole thing get off the ground. So to all those people, I thank you. And I thank you to everyone who sees this spiritual path to be important. So in this 2025, let's apply ourselves to our practice. And there are many different forms of practice, right? It's not just sitting on your cushion like a statue. You know, when you go out to the shop and you buy a loaf of bread, your smile and your kindness to others is your practice. It brightens up the world. When you catch yourself getting irritated or angry with someone, and then you stop yourself from making the situation worse and expressing your frustration, then you also improve the world. Ultimately, what we need to do is to change ourselves. We need to become Buddha so that all beings can be liberated. And that's because all negativity we experience arises out of our own deluded perceptions. So now on this first day of 2025, actually here in Vancouver, it's not New Year's yet, but I think in about 30 seconds you're going to be New Year's in the East. And on the first day of 2025, then let's make a commitment to be more mindful, to be more caring, and to be a little bit more diligent as well. Okay, so everyone in Eastern time, Happy New Year's, as they say. You know, we actually do this in the monastery as well. We have Happy New Year's. We don't get to drink any alcohol, but we get some tasty food usually. So Happy New Year's to you in the East. Oh, have you been to Vancouver, Frog Rock? It's a very beautiful place. Maureen, hello, how are you doing? How are you doing, Maureen? Jeanette just sent me a message and she was saying, are you sure Maureen would be happy to put me up in May? Thank you, Winnie Jones, for your contribution. That's very kind. That's 2 days' food for a retreatant in May. Hello, Dan Man. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. So again, the message is thank you. Also, let's make 2025 auspicious. Let's spread positivity. There's a lot of things to be negative about in the world. I mean, we have to have compassion for those who have bombs dropping on their head. You know, little children in Gaza who have no idea what's going on. They're traumatized. But we can't fall into the trap of negativity, of despair. I always have to remain hopeful because it's not just this life. Like I said, there's infinite iterations, infinite possibilities from incarnation to incarnation. What we have to do is grow from strength to strength, and that's not something that we do in just one lifetime. We have to establish these habits and make them strong. On a stopover, I visited Vancouver and I stayed in Alberta. I'm from Alberta. I was born in Alberta. It's my dream to return to Canada one day. Well, one day, come and visit our retreat. I think in 2026, then we're going to have a karma yoga meditation retreat at the Hermitage in Vancouver Island. And we'll get together and meditate and build a garden for the retreat center for the future. Hi Lama, sorry if this question is a bummer. How can we leave behind the illusion of us and them, of allies and enemies, especially towards those who commit cruelty in the world? So in the Tibetan tradition, there's something called the 7 points of mind training. And so there's various different stages. Where we start off with is we naturally have more regard for ourselves, right? We've got this perspective, me, and I'm in the center of the narrative. I'm like the protagonist of the story. Everything's related in that way. So there's these stages, and the first stage is to not just cherish the self, but to see others, to transform so that others are kind of equal to us. And then eventually what we do is we see others to be more important than us. And it's actually a very kind of specific methodology called the 7 points of mind training, or the way to awakening. You will find translations of this text. It's a practice I have mentioned in previous videos. So I've done a playlist on this teaching on generating bodhicitta. If you look at that, there's some basic instructions. So the idea is that naturally we cherish ourselves. And when other people do things, they irritate us, or they make us happy. That's our natural default state. And then what we have to do is we have to find an object of love and compassion that's easy to contemplate. And then by contemplating on that love and compassion for that easy object, let's say, you know, your child or your mother, if you like your mother, some people don't, then what you do is you then move it from someone close to you to someone a little bit further away. For example, it would be my mother or my child, my family, and then people in my village, people at work, people I don't know. And eventually it progresses in this way until you develop this love and compassion for all beings. But it takes a long time. Ultimately, what we have to do is we have to kind of fake it at first. Thank you, Goldra, very kind. Is that you doing 2 donations? Wow, that's amazing. Be careful with your money, everyone. You know? All the money I was given for Christmas, you're so kind. You didn't buy anything for yourself. The most important thing is when you make a donation for something that's virtuous, is you really check out your motivation and also make sure that it's not too much. So my Lam always says, oh, give 25 cents, give $1, because you'll never regret it, right, if it's a small amount. Because what's taught is that when you give something in charity, and then you regret it, then it kind of nullifies the positive karma. So it's better to be very careful about how you donate. It's very difficult, actually, asking people for money. But rest assured, now that we've established this not-for-profit organization, then everything is very transparent and very accountable. And all the money is going to support people in their practice. And that includes you as well. If any of you want to join one of these retreats, we have one in May in British Columbia. And then we're trying to arrange one in the Jacksonville area in the United States, southern United States, probably spring 2026. And then hopefully I'll have some news on one that we're going to do in the Bay Area or somewhere in western United States in autumn next year. So this money goes to provide retreats for people, to feed them, to give them a room. And eventually what we hope to do is to offer 3-month retreats at the Hermitage. That will be the traditional summer and winter retreats that they do in Buddha Dharma. So people will come and they will stay. All the food will be provided, your room will be provided. You just got to get there. I mean, we'll pick you up from the ferry. And then once that has become established, then we'll be offering kind of 6-month retreats for people. And eventually there'll be a provision for people to do long retreats and hopefully completely be provided for. The biggest problem for spiritual practitioners, people who are serious about their meditation, is that they've got no cash, right? If you want to meditate all day long, every day, then you're not working. And so unless you're rich or somebody's sponsoring you, you've got no way of doing it. And it's quite difficult. So what we're trying to do is to create a kind of new culture by which people can develop spiritual insight. And the reason why I thought this was important is because until people in our own lands develop this spiritual insight, then really there's no way for for the Buddha Dharma or spiritual path to propagate in the West. It's not just about kind of buying, kudos or something like that, or merit. This is what many people think. Go to the temple, make offerings, especially in Asia, and then you buy merit. And then in the West, we kind of think, well, if I read something, read a book, or watch a video on YouTube, I'll just do that, and then I'll develop insight. But it's a little bit more difficult than that. You kind of need the right causes and conditions, right? So what we want to do is, 2025, we're going to establish those conditions. We're going to meditate together. If you can, they say on New Year's you should make a resolution. So if you can, right now, make a resolution. I'm going to practice every day, if it's just 5 minutes a day. Right? Everybody can do that, right? There's nobody who can't do that. Even if you have an emergency, you have to take your son to hospital because he broke his leg. When you're waiting in the waiting room, you can do 5 minutes meditation. There is absolutely almost no condition where you wouldn't be able to do that. And if you can't commit to doing meditation every day, then say, I'm going to meditate once a week. I'm going to join the Sunday meditation course once a week. Everybody can make that kind of commitment. And it's always my position that as much time as you dedicate to your stilling meditation, then there will be that much benefit. Even when it's difficult, even when your mind won't settle, then however much you apply to your shamatha, your stilling meditation, there will be benefit. And it will be something that you're investing, not only in the future in this life, but in future lives. And just watch, see what happens when you develop a regular practice. It sounds like you're just being selfish, right? And doing it for yourself, but that's not like that. If you're in if you're in a relationship, or if you've got a family, children, if you meditate every morning, like 5 in the morning, get up, do an hour meditation, you're going to be a much more calm and relaxed person. You're not going to get angry so easily. You're going to be a better father, a better parent, a better mother, a better lover, all those sorts of things. You'll be a better co-worker. So important. A noble heart horse. I've been meditating for 20 minutes a day. Everyone, rejoice in that. If we rejoice in noble heart horses meditation, and we get the virtue of that as well. We get to share that. So I'm really grateful, Goldra, all the people who are making donations. Winnie, you don't have to give money, but if you do, I will not misuse it. I'm really grateful for that. But I'm even more grateful if you can do 5 minutes meditation a day, 20 minutes meditation a day. That would make me the happiest. They say the greatest offering to your teacher is your own practice. And that's really important. Because if somebody is like, I'm not saying I'm authentic, but if somebody is authentic, an authentic teacher, then their only concern is that you will achieve liberation from the mundane world and eventually achieve final awakening, the state of Buddhahood. And so if you practice, then if I'm authentic, that should make me happy. That's what they say when it says makes the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas happy. It's when they see somebody training their mind. When they see somebody gaining insight. Insight is that which removes ignorance. And it's ignorance in the world that makes us suffer. Right? We think, for example, enemies are what make us suffer. We think lack of food makes us suffer. But really, the basis of all our suffering is our ignorance. And in an enlightened world, then regardless of whether you get cancer or, we all die, right? So if you're on your deathbed, if you've transformed your mind, this mind that is totally accepting, clear and lucid, filled with joy, then that physical pain will not ultimately cause you to suffer. And then on top of that, if you have this kind of hope, this belief in reincarnation, and this process by which from lifetime to lifetime you purify your Buddha realm and get closer to awakening, then the time of death will not be something daunting or something that will cause you to fear. Spectators, I started doing 10 minutes of breathing meditation daily since I started watching your videos. Wow! You know what? That really makes my day. Because I kind of feel sometimes like, what the hell am I doing all this for? Is there any benefit? I'm just talking to myself. But when I see that by doing that, I'm encouraging somebody to actually do some meditation, that really makes it worthwhile. It makes my life worthwhile, right? Like I say, I'm really grateful for people who donate money to help us out. I'm not asking you for your money, but to help out those who want to meditate or those who dedicate their time. But the best thing you can do is meditate. And if I see you're practicing, that's the whole point. The whole point of establishing this not-for-profit organization is to encourage people to do dedicated practice, to encourage people to develop insight. Because as I said, it's this insight that clears away the darkness and ignorance that causes us to suffer in the world. And cultural inertia is just too much, right, to change in one lifetime. Of course, there are people who are angry. There are people with all kinds of negative acts. Somebody's asking earlier, how can you have compassion for those who, conduct violent acts and who are evil, etc.? Well, you can't change these things suddenly. The way to change it is from the inside out, to transform the world. By becoming a beacon, an example for others, then you can transform the way they react in the world. Really, we're very reactive, right? We can get triggered. And a good Dharma practitioner doesn't get triggered. Before they get triggered, they apply mindfulness. And they realize, oh, I'm getting a bit upset by what this person is saying. But if I lash out, it's only going to make things worse. And for many of us, often, before there's even been any kind of negative interaction, we've already assumed what somebody else is like. And we can just lash out and say stupid things, right? So through developing mindfulness, which is what you do in your practice that you do every day, then you're less likely to be swayed. You're less likely to lash out. Alex, thank you very much for your $5. That's lunch for a retreatant in May. Very kind of you. Death is a natural part of life. Yes, Frog Rock. That is what we call insight. That's correct. We need to accept this, right? It's like the seasons change. We've just passed through the shortest day of the year, and now it's the new year, and there's this hope, right, for the sun to rise again. This arisal of energy, hope for a better future. It's like this. Things go in circles, in cycles. Samsara is a wheel. What we have to do is input positive and auspicious energy into this movement. And again, as I said, from lifetime to lifetime, from moment to moment, always be working to improve the situation. My cat died unexpectedly just last month. I have never had to face loss of a loved one so sharply before. How should we learn to let go when it comes to losing loved ones especially? So there is a story that's usually told when this question is asked, and it was about the Buddha. So there was a Brahmin woman in a village in India, and she heard that in a nearby park then an enlightened being had come, and they had a congregation of people living with them. So he heard there was this sort of special being, the Buddha, and her son had died, her only son. And in the Indian culture, then the son is very important. But if you only got one, then that's just terrible. It's the worst thing you could possibly imagine if your only son were to die. And so she thought, well, there's this special spiritually enlightened being, and I must go see him and ask him to bring my son back to life. So she went to the Buddha. And this story is very typical of how the Buddha taught. Okay, the Buddha didn't teach the way we normally think about giving advice. And she said, oh, great sage, I heard you were in the area. My son has died. Please, will you bring him back to life? And so what the Buddha said was, of course I'll do it. But what you have to do for me is, you've got to go into the village, and go back to your village, and find a mustard seed for me. A mustard seed from a house that has never known death. Now the woman, of course, was overjoyed. She thought, what? All I need is a mustard seed? Oh, that's wonderful. And she ran off. But she spent all day, from the morning to the afternoon to the night, going from house to house to house. And of course, almost all the houses had mustard seeds. But when she asked, could I have a mustard seed? But first, tell me one thing. Has anyone ever died in this household? And everyone had the same answer. And that was, well, of course. Of course someone has died from this household. It was the same everywhere she went. And when evening came, then the truth had dawned on her mind. She'd realized what the Buddha was trying to teach her. And she returned to the Buddha and said, I was so wrapped up in my own loss, and I didn't realize the truth of the matter. But now I see that death and impermanence come to everyone. It's not just me. And based on that kind of recognition of impermanence and death, then this woman decided to join the Sangha, to become a mendicant, dedicate her life to the spiritual path. And it's taught that in that lifetime, then she achieved this state of an arhat. So she became liberated from samsara. And so where that started from was just contemplating on impermanence and death. And it's the same if you lose anything. It's not just your dear pets, but anything you lose. If you break something, if you've got your smartphone and you drop it and you break it, if you have in your mind a very strong understanding of impermanence, it will never upset you. The reaction will be, of course, nothing lasts. The year is gone. I mean, it's 2025 now. When I was young, I didn't think I would live to see the millennia. Now it's 2025, right? And impermanence affects everything, It's maybe more obvious for things like insects, but even the sun in the sky will not last. This very universe will come to pass. And so it's taught that this meditation on impermanence is very important, and it's absolutely essential. It's the absolute foundation for coming to understand emptiness. The cause for coming to realize emptiness is to meditate on impermanence. And initially, you need to meditate on coarse impermanence. Just how things get broken. They don't last. I'm growing older. Acceptance of age is very important. Something we don't do in the West. We kind of try to pretend we're not getting older. We think if we have the right supplements or the right medicine, we can reverse aging. We dye our hair. We wear the clothing of a young person. And we do this and we really harm ourselves in this way. One of the most beneficial things that has happened in my recent life, when I was in retreat in Nepal, was recognizing that I was getting old. Because I'm an old man now. I'd always had this feeling in my head that I'm kind of the person I was when I was 18 years old. And it's totally stupid. I mean, we know we all die. We know we're going to get old, but we kind of don't want to think about it. We want to push it away. And if you think about this, if you continually contemplate this in your meditation, you will grow to accept impermanence. And this acceptance of impermanence is liberating. I mean, many of us fear age. We fear death. But it's said that the sign of an advanced practitioner is that at the time of death, they have no fear. In fact, they're taught to have joy when they meet death. So, anyway, there's nothing we can do, whether we accept it or not. The clock keeps ticking. It's 2025. Before you know it, it'll be 2026. How the hell did we get here? Right? The point is the here and now. We can't change the past, and there's no way to predict the future. All we can do is apply ourselves to the present moment. The Buddha taught, if you want to see what you were like or what you were doing in a previous lifetime, just look at your body and your mind now, because that's a consequence of your past actions. And if you want to see what you're going to be like in the future, then just look at how you act right now. So this is the most important thing. We can't go back. There's no way to return to the time when our loved ones who have passed on are still there. The clock keeps ticking. What we can do is we can be mindful in the present moment. Be mindful and apply ourselves to virtue. And on the basis of that, then we're investing in our future happiness. This is the only way that we can control final outcomes. And there will be ups and downs. There will be hurdles to cross. No one ever said that samsara was a smooth ride. It's more like a roller coaster. But what you find is, as your practice develops, then these extremities, these bipolar waves of happiness and suffering begin to still. And eventually through your practice, what you achieve is a mind that is imbued with tranquility, unaffected by the machinations of the mundane world. Well, I'm sure everyone's got lots to do this evening. Eating pizza, drinking beer, toasting to your friends. I don't want to keep you for too long. Again, I just wanted to thank you all for being part of the community, to wish you auspiciousness and hope for the new year, to encourage you to apply yourself to your practice. And a great big thanks to everyone who has contributed to this project, this dream. So I think that's about all I had to say this evening. So Happy New Year's. And until next time. And see you later. May everything be auspicious.